Welcome to the new Haverlock Hunters intermission. The live stream will resume shortly. In the meantime, please enjoy this exploration of the Scarabs by Professor Rainer Borgov. Everyone remembers the first time they saw a bugman tucking into a big bowl of wet leaves, or heaving a boulder from one end of a construction site to another, or just blocking traffic as they amble their way through the city streets. Big as a cart, 6 limbs, no voice, no facial expressions. First you start in surprise, then the fear sets in. Eventually you piss yourself or you don't, then you go home and tell your mates about the big fucking bug you saw eating leaves or lifting rocks or what have you. You get used to them in due time. You realize that they're sapient just like the frog people or bird people or us pigs. You learn that they communicate with chirps and hand signs instead of words, and you learn that they like to keep to themselves. That's enough for most folk. I, however, was fascinated. I made my name studying scarabs at the academy. First picked to take a real interest, in fact. I learned their language, read their poetry, and collected their art. I studied their civilization, biggest and second grandest the world has ever known. And I even tried my hand at chaos rhetoric, their signature discovery, though I had no talent for it. But I do not relay my credentials merely to impress you. Instead, I want you to take me seriously when I tell you that beneath the Scarab's monstrous physique dwells a deep intelligence, a quiet dignity, and an ancestry perhaps more noble than our own. In short, the Scarab are a deeply misunderstood people where, unlike with the Gibbling or Marrowine, what you see is not what you get. For one thing, the Scarab lifespan is inconceivably long. 600 years, to be precise. A curiously specific number. I've tried to discern whether this number is an estimation, but the bugs imply that it is set in stone. Now whether that age limit is culturally or biologically enforced is anyone's guess, but it's an astonishing lifespan either way. Few vampire even live so long. The oldest living vampire, the Gurapai, is only 1.5 times as old. The implications of such a long lifespan are wild. Consider that many of the Scarabs currently living in New Haverlock witnessed our history firsthand. They were there for the Freeman's War and New Haverlock's liberation. They watched the Hunters form the Academy, saw them broker a deal with the vampire, and woke up to the arrival of the First Embassy. From the reddening of the bay, to the hanging of the mother, to just about every other major historical event of the last 2 centuries. Imagine the stories they have to tell. Of course, a long memory is a dual-edged sword. The Scarabs may have lived our history, but that also means they lived their own. Many of the Scarabs living in New Haverlock personally migrated following the Great Paradox. Current estimates by the Academy imply that along with the destruction of the Great Scarab Undercity, more than 99 bugs and 100 were lost in the maw of the Great Paradox. Those numbers suggest that every bug living in the Undercity was consumed. The scholars, the poets, the best of bug kind, gone, in an instant. Those bugs that survived were the ones that lived abroad, traders, diplomats, border guards. Hardly the best and the brightest. The knowledge and culture lost due to the Great Paradox is inconceivable. Imagine where the Scarabs would be had it not happened. Perhaps their civilization would even be nearly as accomplished as ours. It is hard to say. I have been to High Horus and probed the Undercity, but the Great Paradox remains. Whatever glory was once there has been ruined, whatever treasures buried are as good as lost. A shame. Think how grand the New Haverlock's curio collection would be had I and my comrades managed to bring back something worthwhile. I imagine the weariness of a long life combined with the collective trauma of seeing your entire peoples disappear is enough to explain the reserved and often prickly nature of the bug people. Any questions about their past, personal or historical, is met with outright dismissal or a long-winded practical joke. Perhaps the bugs behave differently when speaking amongst themselves, but it's difficult to say seeing as Scarabs live highly independent lives. As such, study of the Scarabs' behavioral quirks must rely on observation alone. The Scarabs are extremely individualistic, usually living and laboring alone. I know nothing of their family structure, as they are extremely private about the way in which they mate and raise their young. I suspect, based on their complete bafflement at the concept of gender, that they are hermaphroditic, but I can't say for sure. The Scarab anatomy is as unknown to us as is their life cycle, unfortunately. They breed slowly, that much is certain, as their population has scarcely grown in the last 200 years. Young Scarabs do seem more social and tend to live in groups, even living together. Elder Scarabs explained this with a saying, "Only children have not tired of life." They seem to tell me this pejoratively. It is annoying. Elder Scarabs seem to spend their time engrossed in a trade like carpentry or alchemy. Curiously, they never seem to make a trade out of chaos rhetoric. I find this odd considering they not only founded the science but practice it with a casualness that would make most scholars jealous. Despite this knowledge and our generous offers, no bug has been willing to come and share their secrets with the Academy. We still are unsure why this is. The end. Thank you for your patience and attention. The live stream or another informational intermission video will begin shortly.